everyone, it's Sarah. Welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video is square number 5, our May square for our Grantastic Crochet Along. And what we're doing for 2019 is each month we're doing a different 6-inch square. And I've been doing all of mine in one color of yarn, and we'll talk more about yarn in just a minute. Now, each month we've done a different square, and each month you need to do 4 of each of the different squares. This month we're doing the granny flower. You can see it has a flower, but it's still shaped like our 6-inch granny square. Here I have one attached to my blocking board so that you can see the outline of the flower a little bit better. Now, all the information for the Grantastic Crochet Along you can find in that link that's underneath this video. It also has a schedule of when each square is released each month. And then you can also find all the videos. They'll always be there in my playlist here on YouTube. I've been stitching all of my 6-inch squares with this light teal yarn. It's a Red Heart Super Saver, medium weight or worsted weight number 4. Whatever you started yours with, you'll want to continue that as far as your weight and fiber. Now, although I'm doing all of mine in one color, because that's sort of the theme for the blanket, we're going to have 12 different squares. We're making 4 of each square, and then we're going to put them all together in a blanket. And I'm not doing them as I go as far as joining, because I want to mix them all up with all the different types of squares. And each month we're doing a different square. We began with a basic, and then we're moving up to more intricate and different types of squares. All right, now you can use up all your leftovers if you want to. You can do solids, variegated, stripes, all different colors, whatever you want to do. Just use your own creative juices for your blanket. Maybe do your favorite colors. I'm doing all of mine, like I said, in this light blue. And you'll also want to stick with the same hook size throughout your project. And we're using an 8, which is a 5.0 millimeter crochet hook. You'll need a needle to weave those ends in, and of course, your scissors. We're going to begin with our slip knot, and then we're going to chain 5. We're going to join this chain 5 into a circle. Snug that down, and then make that little stay knot. Now, if you prefer the magic circle, you can certainly use that here. This is just my preferred method. We're going to put our hook in, pull up a loop, and chain 3. This chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. And now we're going to make 7 double crochets working in our chain 5 loop. Yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over and go through the second 2. So we have our chain 3 and 1 double crochet. So we need to make 6 more. All right, I think that's the right amount. Let's make sure. Here's our chain 3, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have our chain 3 that counts as our first, and then we stitch 7 additional, which makes 8. And if you'll notice, I stitched those stitches over that tail of yarn, and I'll show you why in just a second. We're going to join to the top of our chain 3 with a slip stitch and chain 3. All right, now we're going to just turn this over and just gently pull on that string, and that's going to close up that hole. And then we can come back in and weave that in later. And so for row 1, we have 8 double crochets in a circle, join with our slip stitch to our chain 3 and chain 3. For row 2, our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet, and we're going to double crochet in that same stitch as that chain 3, and then we're going to stitch 2 double crochets in each of those double crochets around. And because we have 8 double crochets on row 1, we're placing 2 in each, so we're going to have 16 double crochets for row 2. Two, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. We're going to join to the top of our chain 3 and chain 3. So for row 2, we have 16 double crochets, join to the top of our chain 3 and chain 3. All right, for row 3, we're going to begin forming the petals of our flower. Our chain 3 counts is our first double crochet, and we're going to stitch 2 double crochets in that same stitch. 1 and 2. And since our chain 3 counts is our first double crochet, we have 3 double crochets in the first stitch. We're going to chain 1, we're going to skip the next stitch, and then place 3 double crochets in the next stitch. And then we'll repeat this. Chain 1, skip the next stitch, and stitch 3 double crochets in the next stitch. Chain 1, skip the next, 3 double crochets in the next stitch. Chain 1, and we'll repeat this 4 more times so that we'll have 8 petals. Oops, there we go. Got to get it in the right spot or it won't lay right. All right, chain 1. We're going to join to the top of our chain 3 with our slip stitch and chain 3. So at this point, it looks a little bit like a wagon wheel, but you need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these groups of 3 double crochet, chain 1 for row 3. All right, we're ready for row 4. And what we're going to do on row 4 is we're going to be placing a cluster stitch in the center or the second double crochet of each of our 8 petals. Yarn over, go in the top of that double crochet, pull up a loop, yarn over, and only go through the first 2 loops. You'll have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over, go in that same double crochet, pull up a loop, yarn over, and you'll go through only just the first 2. So now you'll have 3 loops on your hook. And we'll do that one more time. Yarn over, go in the double crochet, pull up a loop, yarn over, and only go through the first 2 loops. And that leaves you with 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over and go through all 4 of those loops. That's our cluster stitch. We're going to chain 3. We're going to place a single crochet in this chain 1 space. And then we're going to chain 3. All right, now we're going to go to the second double crochet of our next set of 3 double crochets together, and we'll stitch another cluster stitch. All right, now I'm going to chain 3 again, single crochet in my chain 1 space, and chain 3. And those are forming the petals of our flower. All right, let's do it again together. We'll place our cluster stitch in the second double crochet of our next set of 3. There's our cluster stitch, chain 3, single crochet in that chain 1 space, and chain 3. And then we will repeat this on all the petals working around. All right, so now we have 4 of them, and we'll continue doing this around on these last 4 petals. I've completed my 8 cluster stitches with my chain 3s and single crochets in between. I'm on my last one. Here's my chain 3. I'm going to place my single crochet in that last chain space, and I'm not going to chain 3 here. I'm going to join to this chain 3. All right, and that's how you complete this row. For row 5, we're going to be taking our flower and turning it into a square. And what we want to do is we want to slip stitch to this first single crochet. So we'll slip stitch in the top of that cluster. Then we'll slip stitch in that chain. And then we'll slip stitch right in that first single crochet. And then we'll chain 3. And the way row 5 works is we're going to be stitching in our single crochets that are in between our petals to form the square. All right, so our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. We're going to place a second double crochet in that single crochet, and we're going to chain 2. Then we're going to place 2 more double crochets right in that same single crochet. And this will be our first corner formed. Now we'll chain 3. We'll skip over this petal and we'll go right to this next single crochet and stitch 2 double crochets. And chain 3. So here's our first corner and our first side made. Now we're going to skip over the next petal and go right to this single crochet and stitch another corner. So we'll stitch 2 double crochets, chain 2 and 2 double crochets. And then chain 3. And we'll skip over this next petal and go right to our single crochet and stitch 2 double crochets. And chain 3. So I think you can see what we're doing in order to form our square. Like I said, we're only stitching in our single crochets that are in between our petals. Here's our corner, our side, our next corner, and our side. And we're going to repeat this 2 more times so we have 4 corners and 4 sides. I've completed my 4 corners and my 4 sides. Here's my last chain 3. I'm going to join to the top of that chain 3. And then we're going to slip stitch in the next double crochet and then slip stitch in the corner. And that gets us right to the corner, and we're going to chain 3. Now, this is our last row, and it's super duper easy. We're going to make a corner just like we did here. We'll place another double crochet, chain 2 and 2 double crochets. Whoops, there. Keeps wanting to slip off my hook. There we go. We're going to chain 2, and then we're going to come to this first chain 3 space and stitch 2 double crochets. And then we'll chain 2, and we'll go to the next chain 3 space and stitch 2 double crochets. And chain 2. So there's our first corner and our first side of this row, which brings us to our next corner, and we'll repeat that. 2 double crochets, chain 2 and 2 double crochets in the corner, and chain 2. And then we'll go to our next chain 3 space and stitch 2 double crochets, chain 2. And then we'll do that again in the next chain 3 space. 2 double crochets, chain 2. And that brings us to our next corner. 2 double crochets, chain 2 and 2 double crochets. So I think you can see the pattern for this last row. So our corner is 2 double crochets, chain 2 and 2 double crochets. Then we'll chain 2, 2 double crochets in the chain 3 space, chain 2, 2 double crochets in the chain 3 space, chain 2, and then it brings us back to our corner. And we'll repeat that on these last 2 sides. I've completed my sides, my corners. On my last side here, here's my chain 2. I'm going to join to my chain 3. And I like to slip stitch to the corner. You don't have to if you don't want to. I just think it lays better for me. Cut our yarn, tie that off, and I like to come from behind and pull that loop to the back, and then we'll weave that in, and our flower granny will be complete. And that is the 6-inch granny flower square. And remember, you need to make at least 4 for our blanket. And I highly recommend that you block your squares, because when it comes time to put them all together, it's a lot easier if they're all about the same size. If you have major squares and they're a little bit small, that just means that your tension is tighter. And it's okay. Or if yours are a little bit bigger, that just means that you crochet looser. And that's okay as well. Just make sure all your squares are the same size. Next month, we're going to be doing the Meshy Granny.